All right, on this Fanmail Friday, we consider this question. Are we happy with where the Halos are at right now? We'll tell you how we feel and why you should feel the same way about this team. It's time to get locked on with Mike and Jon, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And the best way to help us out is by giving us a rate and a review like Holy Saint Josh did recently. Johnny, we got 5 stars from Holy Saint Josh, so thank you. What a saint he is. And those watching on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed and click the bell to be notified every time a new episode drops. And today's show is brought to you by the Gametime app. You can download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Thank you for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is Jon, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother Jon.
We're having ourselves a Fan Mail Friday, and we're very glad that you guys send in your questions and your voicemails, and we have some good questions to get to, Mike. Just to make everybody aware, I know you might be here looking for a recap of last night's Astros game. However, we're going to recap all 4 games on Monday so we can get that whole weekend series in one episode for you. If you want to know our immediate thoughts, you can go to YouTube or Instagram or our Twitter at Locked On Angels, and you'll be able to find our responses there, our immediate responses. So if you're curious about how we feel about the results of the game, you can find those there. Mike, let's get into our first voicemail of the day. It's going to be from Nick in Clearwater, Florida.
Hey guys, this is Nick from Clearwater, Florida, calling just after the awesome sweep against the Red Sox. Beyond stoked for how this team is performing right now, but I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts. This is kind of the same mentality I felt last year, just before that 14-game losing streak. So I'm curious, this is exactly around the same time that losing streak happened, and I'm wondering how you guys are feeling going into the month of June. Do you think that we can continue this type of success where we're beating teams like the Red Sox? Or now that we potentially might be seeing some more talented teams like Texas and Houston down the road, that things might take a turn for the worst as they unfortunately have in the past. I'm loving your guys' podcast. You guys are doing a great job and love to hear your thoughts. Thanks so much.
Nick in Clearwater, Florida, thank you for giving us a call. Mike, somebody listening all the way in Clearwater, Florida. How about that? Yeah, that's awesome. Mike, he called before right after the Red Sox series, and he was worried about, is this when the Angels go on a losing streak? And then they lost 3 in a row to the Marlins. So I'm sure Nick was freaking out. We didn't get to the question last week because we had our big interview with Foul Territory, but I'm glad that we can get to it this week. He's asking, is this a point in the season where we can worry a little bit about what June's going to look like? You and I feel like they could get 15 wins next month or this month, I guess. And we feel like that's possible. I'm actually kind of glad about where we are. I know that is might sound like a silly thing. Here's the thing. I feel like 27-17 last year really set us up for massive disappointment because then we went on the losing streak and didn't win again until much later. And so I guess what I'm saying is I feel like a more reasonable record of, hey, they've kept their head above water for the last 2 months. They've got a winning record in both May and April, and I think that they can keep that up. But Mike, if we get into these series against Houston and the Texas Rangers, do you think things are going to take a turn for the worse? What do you think?
I hope not. And if you look at like Texas and you look at Houston, let's talk about Texas for a moment. They're Johnny actually outperforming. I'm looking at the stats right now. They're outperforming expected hitting and pitching numbers. So they're kind of playing above their heads, which maybe this is who they are, and that's fantastic for them. They are kind of playing above their heads. So that'll kind of come back down once the hot summer Texas sun hits them, right?
So if they're outperforming their expected numbers, like regression is possible.
Yeah.
I mean, if they play at this level all season long, then they deserve to get to wherever they're going. But when you think about 162 games, like nobody sustains this good of play for the whole season, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And when you look at like Houston, they're actually underperforming with their expected hitting numbers. So we might see an offensive uptick from them now that Jose Altuve is back.
Yes.
And, like Jose Abreu finally hit a home run. As of this recording, he has one. We'll talk about what happened in last night's game and every game on Monday, but he finally has one. Johnny, it's their pitching that actually is set for maybe a slight regression because they have – they're moving to a 6-man rotation for a bit, and they lost a couple of really key guys. And so I think that what we can expect from Texas and from Houston is some adjustment. And speaking of adjustment, I think that we can expect that from the Halos. I think that we can see this team actually maybe put some wins together. It'd be nice if they could put maybe 5 to 7 wins together. And I think that we can expect that from this team because it's a team that is set up to do that and to do that well.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, let's go to our second voicemail of the day.
Hey, John and Mike. This is an everydayer, Mark, from San Bernardino. I got a statement and a question. My statement is, do you guys think that we have a winning streak in our future? I see this team as being underperforming and should have an opportunity to really put like a good 8, 10, 12 gamer together, which would really get us to where we need to get to. And then the question is, Rendon was put on a 10-day DL May 15th, and 2 days after he was put on the DL, Nevin said that, we shouldn't have put him on the DL. He's ready to go, and he's still out. So what is the story there? Thanks a lot. Love your show.
Mark from San Bernardino, thanks for being a Locked On Everydayer with us and tuning in each day of the week. We love that. He wore that badge of Everydayer proudly, Mike.
Love that.
He's got a great question about, can the Halos start performing more consistently and go on a bit of a win streak? We were talking about expected numbers with the Rangers and the Astros, and I was actually looking at the Angels' expected numbers saying, hey, are they playing up to their capabilities, or are they playing down and not quite up to that? And the truth is that they're actually right in line with their expected numbers. I was very surprised to see that. So in some ways, the team that we have is the team that we have, but the expected numbers also take into account some of the guys that haven't been performing or aren't even on the team now. If you look at StatCast, Jose Quijada's numbers are part of that. Of course, Aaron Loop's numbers are part of that. And then you have like new guys like Ben Joyce, whose expected numbers are part of that and actually make us a lot better. I mean, Ben Joyce's batting average against is 250 and the expected is like 118 against Ben Joyce. So all that to say, the Angels are playing about right in line where they're supposed to be. And that even goes for the hitting as well. But I think that these guys are able, if they are able to go on a hot streak and put together some wins, that's going to be great. But you and I have always been about, let's win series. Let's take 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4. I think that is more sustainable. It doesn't feel like the end of the world when you think in terms of series against other teams. What about this nonsense with Rendon on the IL and then Nevin says he shouldn't be on the IL? What is going on with that?
Well, there's no communication between the training staff and the media, and that's by design by by president of the team, John Carpino. He just seems to like to control all of the strings and really get into the weeds. And so all of the communication is coming through Phil Nevin. And quite frankly, with all that Nevin is responsible for, he probably doesn't have all the details. And so he's going to give the pieces that he knows. And then even Rendon, like just recently was like, hey, how you feeling? And he yelled back, amazing, right? Like, fantastic. But you're not getting any of those details. And so I'll never quite understand why there isn't a string of communication from the appropriate people to the media. I don't know why they feel like they have to have this state-run media and this control, but that's why we kind of hear, hey, this is happening, and then this is happening, and then we're not really sure. It's why it's a bit of a mixed bag and mixed messaging.
Yeah, it's really silly to not just communicate clearly and let us know as fans what's going on. We want to know the updates with Rendon and whatnot. I guess I did see that Sam Blum tweeted yesterday, Rendon it looked like he was taking some BP, so maybe that indicates a step forward. They seem to think that Rendon will be back once they get home from the road trip next week, and so he should be back in time for the Cubs series, We shall see. That is still a question that's up in the air, so we'll see what happens there. Hey, by the way, don't forget that the Angels are back at it against the Houston Astros tonight at 5:10 Pacific time. Ohtani's on the mound. You're not going to want to miss it. Man, he is an Astro killer, Mike, whenever he is on the mound. It's so great. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, we're getting to more of your questions, and we're going to play a little keep it or kick it when it comes to some of your trade proposals. That's coming up in just a minute.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by the Gametime app. With the Gametime app, buying tickets is fast and easy. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up until the day of the event. So if you're not a planner like me, it's perfect for you. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Gametime guarantees that you'll get the best price. On the Gametime app, you can buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps and you're set. You can see the images of your seats before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. You can discover the lowest price guarantee and even get event cancellation protection. Tickets are sent directly to your phone. You don't have to dig through email. And if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. How about that? Grab the tickets without all the stress with the Gametime app. You can download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. There are some terms that do apply. Again, create an account and redeem $20 off with our code LOCKEDONMLB. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Don't forget that the Angels are back at it in Houston against the Astros at 5:10 Pacific time. Catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
All right, Johnny, let's play a little keep it or kick it. We're going to talk about some trades and some roster moves. This one's from Chris47 Vasquez on Instagram. How do you guys feel about Stroman as a deadline pick?
Mike, I'm looking at Stroman, and he's having himself a great year. In 2023, he's 5-4 with a 2.59 ERA. He's started 12 games, 62 strikeouts. Listen to this, a .986 whip.
Wow.
Walks and hits per innings pitched, so he's keeping players and runners off the bags. Mike, I think if the Angels want another starting pitcher, I think that Marcus Stroman would be a great deadline deal. What do you think?
I think it's reasonable, but I think where I struggle with this, Johnny, is this feels like one of those trades where the Angels would go and get somebody like this, and then he would completely fall apart for us. And Stroman seems to be really good on teams that aren't really good. I don't think that there really has been opportunities for him to perform in a big time setting. And so I kind of like to see what he would do on a winning team. And so if we bring him over, that'd be awesome. I just have this like Angel PTSD because anytime we've brought anybody over, they seem to not have really performed for us. I would say Mark Teixeira wasn't a part of that. He was awesome when we traded for him, but it seems like when we trade for guys, they just don't perform the way that we expect them to perform or the way that they did perform before we picked them up.
Yeah, he's owed $25 million this season. He's got a $21 million player option for next season, and so the Angels would be on the hook for that money. I'm thinking about the Zach Greinke deal that they did in 2012, where he came over and he was good for us. The Angels just fell short of making the playoffs.
Yeah,
they actually had a better record than the first place AL Central Tigers that year, but because of the wild card situation, the Angels did not get a wild card spot in 2012, which is so frustrating because the AL Central and the NL Central are still that way.
Right.
They have all these teams with better records, but these guys, because of their division they're in, can just get right into the playoffs. So I don't know, man. I think if you're going to go out and get a pitcher, I think that Marcus Stroman is a good pickup, especially with the success that he's having this year. I'd love to dive in the numbers a little bit more and kind of see what's sustainable and what's not. What are his expected numbers, that sort of thing. Hey, Ruben Rosas on Instagram has a trade proposal. Salvador Perez and Aroldis Chapman to the Angels for Matt Thaiss, Jose Suarez, Joe Adell, and David Fletcher. What do you say, Mike?
Oh, man, Ruben, that's actually a really good trade proposal. I like that one. My initial thought is to kick it and to not keep it because I see Matt Thaiss in there, and I'm like, man, he's just been playing so well for us. Who replaces him, right? And yet that's why Salvador Perez is coming over. So my initial thought is to kick it. But I'm actually going to say I keep this one because I think that this actually really helps our team this season and perhaps even next season. What do you think, Johnny?
Yeah, I'd say I would keep it just because I liked what Eric Kratz had to say last week when we interviewed him and Scott Braun about having a playoff catcher, somebody who can call the game and who's been there before, and that's Salvi Perez.
Yeah.
And of course, Aroldis Chapman as a reliever has also been in the playoffs, part of the 2016 Cubs World Series team. And so you get that playoff experience, and then the Royals get a solid catcher to replace Perez. They get some pitching in Suarez. They get Joe Adell and David Fletcher, who can help them move forward as a team. I mean, Joe Adell in that outfield kind of makes sense, I think.
It does, yeah.
Gives them some offensive pop. So maybe that's something they go for. So if that were to happen, I would definitely keep it.
How about Carson West on Instagram? He said, what trade pieces are we going to need to make a run at the wild card rivals? Dylan Cease, he suggests. Johnny, what do you think?
Ooh, Dylan Cease. I got to look at his numbers. Dylan Cease obviously is somebody that you can count on to give you a great start in the rotation. But I'm thinking, what's going on with him this season? Let me look here. I'm doing it on the fly. 3-3, a 4.88 ERA, a 1.404 WHIP. Not as good as last year when he was really like he came in second in Cy Young voting. Whew, I mean, if as somebody you want to take a gamble on, maybe you can get him low, like you can buy low a little bit on him, not as expensive as he obviously would have been last year. But I think Carson makes a good point, Mike. I think if anybody's going to be dealing at the deadline, I think it's going to be the White Sox.
Oh, I agree.
So whether it's Dylan Cease or somebody else, I think that you're going to see them selling off big time at the deadline. I'd take Cease. I don't know who I would go for or I would give to the White Sox for Cease. It really depends on what they want. Let me see how much time he actually has left on his contract here. If Baseball Reference tells me,
as you're looking, I would go for Cease or Giolito. I think both of those guys. It might be the case of bad team having a bad season, and they might need to jump to what we're doing in Anaheim and maybe help them to improve. Now, I know I just said with Marcus Stroman, like I'm nervous about that. I'd be nervous about these two guys as well, but that's just the Angel PTSD in me, and I need some therapy for that. But the reality is I think you can take Cease or you can take Giolito, and I think you instantly upgrade the starting rotation.
Yeah, definitely. I think any of those guys are a great move. Arbitration next year, earliest free agent year is 2026. So if you get Dylan Cease, you have some years there. So that tells me that the White Sox asking price is probably going to be a bit higher than I originally thought.
Yep.
Just because Cease is having a down year. So I think that they're going to want a pretty high price. But like you said, either of those arms make an immediate impact on this rotation. Hey, Yamaha Mother One on YouTube says, if the Angels are successful in re-signing Shohei Ohtani this offseason, what do they do with free agents Gio Urshela and Hunter Renfroe? How might their roster spots be best replaced? Mike, I have an initial thought.
Okay.
And I believe Sam Blum wrote an article about this just recently. Gio Urshela this year is everything we've wanted in David Fletcher since he's been hurt.
Yeah.
He's getting timely hits. He's hitting the ball the other way. It's not a lot of power. Like he does have some home runs and some doubles, but all of his numbers are actually kind of in line with the successful 2019, 2020 David Fletcher that we had. And you and I thought could make a comeback. Now, David Fletcher obviously is killing it in AAA, but that's AAA.
Right.
And we don't know how that's going to translate to the majors. So Gio Urshela, to me, if they need to replace him, according to this question, I think David Fletcher is that replacement. I think David Fletcher comes back to the team and is on the 26-man roster in place of Gio Urshela. What about Hunter Renfroe? What do you think?
I would keep Hunter Renfroe. I think I would do what I can to re-sign that guy. Here's why. He's got a great bat, but he's also great in the outfield. And if you were going to replace him with Joe Adell's got a great bat. he's not great in the outfield. If you're going to replace him with Mickey Moniak has had flashes of greatness in the outfield and at the plate, but there's still some questions. And then if you're going to replace him with Taylor Ward either is struggling at the plate or he's struggling in the outfield. Hunter Renfroe is just a guy. He's a dude. He's got an arm. And so I like guys like that. I love having guys like that on our team. They are a great building block around Trout and Ohtani. And so I would re-sign Hunter Renfroe. If I could, I would re-sign Gio Urshela. I'm trying not to think about money because remember, that's the conversation we had with our friends at Foul Territory. Don't think about money. It's not your money. Yeah. So I think that both would be great to bring them back. But if I had to pick one or the other, I would say, let's go with Hunter Renfroe. And then perhaps David Fletcher comes back up, or we give a shot to somebody like Kyron Paris and let him come up and maybe prove himself in spring training, see what he can do.
Yeah, there's a lot of infielders on this team who really are knocking on the door of the major league roster. Somebody mentioned, hey, Anthony Rendon, how about we sign Gio Urshela long-term? And I just want to put it out there. Gio Urshela is 31 years old.
Yeah.
And if you're mad about Rendon and his injuries and how much he hasn't played and how much money he's making, keep in mind that Rendon was signed at age 29 going into his age 30 season. And so if you want to go down this path of another Rendon, yeah, sure, we can sign Gio Urshela long-term, but you're going to have the injuries, you're going to have the old age, you're going to have the regression. I love what Gio's doing right now, but he's not a long-term piece of this team, in my opinion.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen today. Locked On Everydayers, we're so glad that you're here. This is Fanmail Friday as we continue with questions. John, hit me with that next question.
All right, Jeshi Kayo on Instagram said, hey, any love for Gio Urshela? I know we just talked about him. He seems to be the most consistent batter on this team. Mike, don't you feel like he's been doing what Rendon was doing at the plate in terms of hitting guys over or driving them in when it matters most? And then at third base, he's been a lot better than Rendon because Rendon's had some errors on this team and throwing errors. I almost feel like if the Angels wanted to keep the same kind of lineup that they had with Rendon, don't you think Urshela might be a good cleanup option?
Yes, and here's why. When we played the Marlins, Arise was batting cleanup, right? And what did he do? He slapped that ball everywhere.
He cleaned
right?
up.
He cleaned up. And something you said off of the air that I love, you said, this isn't 1995 anymore, right? You don't need a big bopper in that cleanup spot. And that's why Trout and Ohtani aren't there and why Renfroe's at 5 and 6, right? So I think having Gio.
Yeah, they moved him down yesterday.
Having Gio there, I think, is a really appropriate spot because he's moving runners over, he's making contact, and that's, I think, what you want. I think the metrics would actually back that up as well. I think you want somebody that can make contact because Trout and Ohtani, the likelihood of them being on base is pretty high. Let's move them over or at least try to hit them in. You don't need someone hitting a 3-run home run. It's nice, but what you do need is somebody that makes contact, moves the runners over, perhaps even gets a single, gets an RBI, and continues to turn over the lineup.
Again, like Gio Urshela hasn't had a lot of power. Yeah, he's got a few home runs. He's got some doubles. But that's what Rendon has been doing all season when he was healthy, and it was working. And so I think Gio is a great replacement at that spot. Mike, hit me with the next one.
Vin Russo on YouTube asked this question.
What's up,
Neto's
Vin?
been in a 0-13 slump. Do you think that leg kick will eventually go, Johnny?
I don't think they're going to mess with the leg kick. I think that they'll let him do that for a while. I think it's time, or I don't think it's time. I think that they will make an adjustment at some point, right? We've seen that. We see that all the time with young guys. He's had success, and I know it's an 0-13, but you have to remember that sacrifice flies don't get counted as a hit because it was a sac fly. But he had a huge one against Liam Hendricks on Monday, and that was a big run for the Angels, who won that game 6-4. It would have been 5-4 without that sacrifice fly. But here's what I went back through StatCast and Baseball Savant, and I looked at all of his 0-for games, the last few. He has had kind of poor pitch selection. That's really been the issue for him. He's been getting fooled on sliders and sinkers, swinging at stuff down and away. And remember, when he came up, Mike, one of the things that we were really impressed with was his ability to work counts and have an incredible eye at the plate. Now, when he has hit the ball, he's actually hit the ball really hard. So that power hasn't gone away. And so I think to answer Vin's question about the leg kick, well, he's still making contact and he's still hitting the ball hard in most cases. And so really, if it comes down to like a timing issue with the leg kick, that's when I would begin to worry about it. For example, Lance Lynn did strike him out. So of all the at-bats he had, that would be the one to be concerned about because all those pitches were in the zone. They were up and in. The one that he struck out on was up and in, and he swung and missed on those. And that to me would be like a leg kick / timing issue. I just think that he got overmatched in that. And I also think that the fact that he's still making contact and hitting the ball hard, I don't think is an issue with the leg kick at the end of the day.
Yeah. How about Brandon Harris 17 on Instagram, continuing to talk about Neto. He said, could Neto make the All-Star team? Johnny, I'm going to say no for 2 reasons. One, if he's going to make the team, he's probably going to have to get voted in, and Angel fans are notorious at not voting in their players. I know Trout makes it, but that's because he's well known.
Right.
And 2, if he makes the team, he's going to have to get selected. And I think what's going to happen is the coaching staff will see players who are more deserving in their mind because they've been around longer, maybe more of a veteran. Hey, it'd be great to give this guy the nod. And so I'd be shocked if Zach Neto makes the All-Star game this year.
How dare you say that Angel fans don't vote for their players? Come on, everybody. You have to prove Mike wrong.
Please
Get out there
wrong.
and vote and make it happen. We'll put out the link on Twitter and Instagram so you can get to that much easier because we got to vote our boys in. I don't care. You can vote for your favorites, but you can vote all Angels if you want to.
Heck
so
yeah.
just to get them in there.
You can vote like 3 or 4 times, so go for it.
That's right.
Prove
Every
me
day
wrong.
you can
Come
vote
on.
every day. Yeah. Hey, last question. This cracks me up. Aggie Nicky, a great listener and viewer from Instagram. He said, I know bullpen depth is important, but does Aaron Bloop make it to the 15th of June or does he get DFA'd? Mike, my opinion is on, I love that Aaron Bloop.
Yeah.
Aaron Loop, we see what happens when Matt Moore comes back. I think they'll hang on to Aaron Loop because they need a lefty. But once Matt Moore comes back, I think that's when they'll make a decision on Aaron Loop if he hasn't turned it around by that point, or they at least get him to a place where he feels reliable. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that they're not going to hurt the depth of this team. I think they're going to at least wait until Matt Moore comes back. Hey, quick story. John and I have a mutual friend who found an Aaron Loop baseball card and he sent it to us.
Scotty!
And he said, this is the best gift I've ever given. And I just had to receive that. And I laughed and I laughed and I laughed. So thank you, Scott. That was so good. We appreciate you thinking of us. Aaron Loop, and it wasn't even on the Angels. It was Aaron Loop on the Blue Jays. And he was actually better.
I know.
I love that. I loved it. Hey,
That's
thanks
great.
for making Locked On Angels your first listen today. The Angels do play the Astros tonight at 5:10 Pacific time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Hey, thanks for tuning in today. Whether you were on the audio side or the YouTube side, you can always catch us at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. If you're listening on the audio side, come on over to YouTube, comment below the video. We love having you in the conversation. And if you're watching on YouTube, it really helps out the channel. It helps Mike and I if you comment below. And hit that like button. Give us a thumbs up. That also really helps as well. Hey, Mike, what do we have on deck for Monday's show?
Well, a 4-game series against the Astros deserves a full show, and we're going to take all of Monday and talk about what happened in each game. And so if you want our initial reaction, check out our YouTube and social media for our Locked On Nows. We're going to give you updates, our initial reaction to the game. We're going to break down every game on Monday on Locked On Angels.
Looking forward to that conversation, and I hope that we can walk away with at least a series split in this one. So we hope you have a great weekend, and we'll be back here on Monday. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you back here on Monday.